track of what I was saying. Oh, no, I remember. I don't know how much you know of human evolution. Like I said, that's the only one I haven't built. Do you know? Okay, so we had like pre-modern humans, like the Australopithecus. That's Lucy. If you've ever heard of Lucy before, but the first true, like pre-modern human, I guess is what I'm trying to say, was Homo habilis. Do you know when that occurred? Now, I mean, everything basically started in Africa, and that's just seems to be that's where everything started. But do you know at what time period the first modern, I mean, they didn't look like us. They looked more like Lucy did. Lucy looked pretty much like an upright chimpanzee, and she was little. She was only like 3 feet tall. But when did these guys start? You're close. Close. It's the end of this particular period, and it's called the Pliocene. The Pleistocene was the beginning, was the Quaternary, okay, and that was the Ice Age, and we had Neanderthals at that point, Cro-Magnon at that point. Okay, so that's after Homo habilis. The prefix Homo does not mean that you think it is, okay? It means man. That's what that prefix means, and I'm not sure if it's Latin or if it's Greek. For us, yes, it depends. As a prefix, it means same, okay? But as a standalone, it means man. So like ours is Homo sapiens, and sapiens means wise. So our genetic name, our act like genus and species, literally translates to wise man. I don't remember what habilis means. I have to look all of this stuff up. I have not built the evolution of man yet. I just haven't gotten to it. I ran out of time. I really wanted to over spring break, and since I didn't start any schoolwork until Friday, I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to get to it. But to the Neogene, this is now the Paleogene, the one before this, was the longest of the 3 periods. The Neogene is the second of the longest. The one that we're in is the shortest. In fact, our epoch has only been around for about 12,000 years. But the Neogene was about 20 million years, give or take, of evolution. And just climatic change. Now, we don't have like super insane tectonics going on at this point. Most of the continents were pretty much where they are now. We're now having, and just like with the previous one, we're having glaciations, which means sea levels go down, and then we're having meltings, which means that the sea levels go up. So your coasts are constantly changing. This is the wide open grassland time. Grasses started in the previous period in its last epoch. Okay, but in the Neogene, it was just wide open space. Not that there were not trees. I mean, they were still trees. It's just not as forested as it was in the previous. There are only 2 epochs, which is what makes this a little bit shorter. I do have a couple of slides that are nothing but a map, so just to let you see what the things look like. The earlier of the 2 epochs is the Miocene, and then when the first humans, towards the end of the Neogene, the first humans really, like modern humans, started developing in the Pliocene. Now, the primitive human ancestors were already around. Like I said, and I have to go back and check all the dates, because I know I've learned this stuff. It's just been 20-something plus years. Like I said, Australopithecus, that's the infamous Lucy, which I have seen in the museum, and I was so excited. It's so well preserved, I was looking for cavities in the teeth. And then I found out it was a replica, and I got sort of miffed. But it makes sense. They're not going to put, you have to understand, most things like that in museums, like mummies, they're not the real thing. They don't let those out of their countries. They just don't. I know the Fabergé eggs I saw were real. Those things were beautiful. Fabergé eggs, the Russian oligarchy, if you've ever seen like the movie Anastasia, or it's a cartoon, your czars in Russia were like, they're the only people that had money and basically could afford to eat. And at that time, if you're a regular person, you basically starved to death. Well, they had these eggs that were made out of jewels and gems. They're called Fabergé eggs. It's a really weird time in history back then. You didn't want to live in Russia unless you were royalty. And then they had sort of put them all in a room and shot them when the people rose up and had a revolution. So you don't need to obviously write anything here. This is in the middle of the Miocene. So the first epoch looked very, very similar to modern positions of continents. Now, if you notice, this is the Tethys Sea right here had not been choked off yet. Okay, so once the Arabian Peninsula like slammed together, that's when you started getting like the Caspian Sea, the Red Sea, the Black Sea. So those are the leftovers of the Tethys Sea. Obviously, everything is a little bit closer together. This land bridge isn't completely formed. The land bridge isn't completely formed. That happens a little bit later. So most of North America, early in the period, what you think of as like the plains areas, was underwater. That is why most of our country's bedrock, not in the mountains, in the plains, is mostly limestone. It's been a while since we've done rocks. Limestone forms in shallow seas. A lot of the earlier countries, things like Africa, they're granite. They're not limestone. In the middle of the Miocene, we have all different kinds of mountains going haywire. The Himalayas are already up. The younger ones are going, so mountains go up. Okay, they start to erode. I'm not going to make you learn the chemical equation. The weathering of rocks naturally pulls carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, which reduces that greenhouse gas and allows the earth to cool off. Oh, let alone when the mountains are higher up, higher elevation is more indicative of snowfall and glaciers. So all of these things helped drive the temperature down in this entire period. In our country, the Cascade ranges are going up. Appalachian's already up. Rockies are still doing their thing. The basins of Nevada and Utah are going up. The ones in Alaska are going up. All different kinds of mountains are forming at this time. The very first recorded and known motion of the San Andreas Fault also occurs in this period. It's because the two plates slam together. Then eventually they start sliding because the San Andreas Fault is a transform fault. It's been a while since we've done that stuff too. Told you the stuff that we were doing was going to come back eventually when we get a little bit more in depth. So I'm not going to go back to the picture. The continents pretty much, with the exception of some water where it's not there anymore, the outlines of the continents pretty much are where they're supposed to be. They just sort of shift into their proper positions. The Cascade Range, which is on the west, northwest, the Sierra Nevadas. Sierra Nevadas are weird if you've ever been there. The mountains are a different kind of mountain. They're very jagged and they all lean. They lean to the west. And this particular, in our country, because I'm not talking about every single part of the planet, I don't have time. When those mountains actually shifted, it's like they're lazy. They literally bend to the west. That's actually the end of the Neogene, and that's the beginning of the Quaternary. I'm going to do the Quaternary tomorrow. I think that was email. I don't think that was a single email. Let me check. But pretty sure that was email. My new issue of Azel News is now available. I can't find Google Meets on Canvas. What? They're at the beginning of the module. How does he not? Hold on, let me respond to him. Why won't it let me reply to him? What the heck just happened? Reply. I swear, our internet right now, well, at least it's up. At least it's up. Wait, the link to the meets is at the top of this week's module. Well, I don't, whoops, I can't type. I don't change anything. Well, I mean, obviously I changed the notes, but okay, let me go back to this. Uplift, okay, so the Rockies are already formed. Uplift just means that as a chunk, they're going up higher together. It's not necessarily that the plates are crashing together and they're forcing things to go up. Uplift means that something is happening underneath them, some type of a magmatic activity that lifts the entire range up. And that's what happens in the Colorado Plateau. There's all different kinds of names for the interesting formations that are out there. The things that make plateaus, nice big flat tops and then sheer sides. This is all happening at the same time. How the heck you can get up there unless you have a helicopter? My dad can take you there. You can fly helicopters.
I want to go helicopter.
Oh, we don't do that. They fly like dolphins and stuff. It's not like, you know, the ones that like the Care Flight helicopters. That's what his company makes. It's not his company. The company he works for. We used to fly around helicopters all the time we were kids. We fly over like Six Flags. It used to be called Wet and Wild. Now it's called Splash something. I don't know what they changed it to. It's so much fun. They can't really do that, like for like safety regulations. They don't really do that anymore. But we used to do that every year. We fly sideways in dolphins, backwards in them. We used to go up in Chinooks when I was really little. Those were cool. The ones with the two big helicopter blades on the top. All right, so you still have Himalayas that are forming. Most of them have already gone up, but they're still crashing together. Yeah, check here first. Sometimes it's unlocked. You don't slam your face into it. The women's was unlocked yesterday. So at the end of the Pliocene, so the Miocene is the first and the Pliocene is the second. There's one more there is. That is when that land bridge happened. So right before the ice ages, you now had a land bridge that was connecting North and South America. Ground sloths went north, llamas went south. We had possums came north because that's how we got our marsupial. Mammals and birds, you had some species that really didn't change very much, but mammals and birds, they pretty much changed into their modern species. Those terror birds are starting to go extinct. They were around in the earlier part of the Neogene, but your first humans, and this was sort of the answer to the opener, they appeared in Africa at the end. So in the Pliocene, did I not put it? Oh, it's not on here. At the end of the Neogene, the second epoch is the Pliocene. And those are your first modern humans. Like I said, we have the predecessors of those have been around for a while now. But all of this is happening in Africa. And eventually we'll come back on Monday and we'll talk about that area. It's called the Fertile Crescent. It's the area like Mesopotamia, you may have heard that, between the Euphrates and the Tigris River. All different kinds of interesting things are occurring in that region to encourage the mental development of humans. When we started doing like modern tools, and domesticating livestock, and understanding how to cultivate plants and do selective breeding, all of that stuff for both plants and animals. So Italy is moving north, okay, and it's hoping to raise the Alps, the French and the Swiss Alps. Spain slams into France, and that mountain range is the Pyrenees. Put that one because I got a foreign exchange student from Spain. Try to include stuff for him.
That is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, he's in my second period. He hasn't been here. Uh-oh. He hasn't been here for a couple days. It's to get them okay, he found the link. It's like it is expensive and they have to follow all these specific rules or they get sent back. But it's like for like a culture kind of.
I have a friend that goes to Granbury High School. She's from exchange student from Germany. I've had multiple exchange students from Spain in the past, Germany. I have one from Japan this year. She's in my second period also.
Japan.
So they have to know the English, right?
Yes. They have not necessarily 100% fluent. Yes. And normally they take classes here that they've already taken. It's more for, like I said, like the culture.
So what is this going to be behind the new school?
I'm sure they're going to put it in solution before doing
How does that still doing and for all year?
Well, I mean, like I said though, it's for the experience of the different countries.
I want to do something like this.
So, but it's very expensive. And if you don't follow all the rules, you do get sent back.
And I have had some foreign exchange students that made some poor decisions and were sent back home. I have.
Hey, really?
Yeah, when I worked at Vidor, I had 2 of them that did that.
What'd they do?
I'm not going to divulge on what they did, but they did things that were not allowed and they got caught and they were sent home. Huh?
They do do or something?
I'm not, shh, stop. All right, so where was I at? South America, so down along the west coast of South America, your Andes are still going up. So like I've said before, they go up higher elevation, you're gonna have snowfall, you're gonna have glaciation, and it's going to help drive everything to go colder. Water gets locked in ice, sea levels drop, and then your land bridges form. So like I said, we now have a land bridge between the Americas, and then we also have one that's forming up between Alaska and Siberia. That's the one that allowed humans, the ones from Africa, to travel up and then go across the Bering Strait and then come back down in between those 2 ice caps that we talked about when we did ice ages. Is there one more in there? No. I go too fast. All right, so we're going to specifically talk about the Miocene. This is the earlier of the 2 epochs. Your continents, like I said, they're not where they are now. That happened in the Quaternary. That's tomorrow's. And your rising mountain ranges that are happening in this, and I've said this multiple times now, this is what's driving this cold change. It's not necessarily an ice age yet. I just like cut my head with my fingernail, scratching myself. How the heck did I manage to do that? Really? Okay, I'm not really reading them. All right, so let's see here. I don't remember if there's one more. The forests. The forest, because of colder temperature, they start to get choked out even more. We said grasses have taken over. This started in the last period at the end of its epoch. And, okay, there's one more. This is what led to modern plants. Now we have some tie-overs from before the dinosaurs, ferns, mosses, lichens, those are older. Okay, we had some from the age of the dinosaurs themselves, the cycads, ginkgo, one species of ginkgo made it through, it's still here today. But in conifer plants like pine trees, they obviously made it through, we have those today. Some of the flowering plants that started in the dinosaurs made it through, but the modern versions of them happened in the Miocene. So like sunflowers and like maple trees. Well, actually maple trees are a little older because they're a seed wind-driven plant. If you have any crepe myrtles, that would be something that would have happened here. That's a flowering one. I hate crepe myrtles. Mine died in the freeze and I'm so happy I get to tear it out. I hate them. They're nasty. And my 2 oak trees died too, but that's okay. I'm gonna replace them with some October glory maples.
You're the apple tree.
No, you have to have at least 4 apple trees to be able to get a proper, if you actually want to crop. And I'm not planning.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah. And then you have to be 2 different species too. And some of them work well with others and some of them don't. I seriously thought about putting a bunch of fruit trees on my previous property because we had 3 acres, but I was like, nah. It flooded too bad. All right, so the land bridge between the Americas separated the Atlantic and the Pacific. And so now the Gulf Stream is the only thing that can take heat from point A to point B instead of multiple ways from heat to be transferred from point A to point B. You had a massive cool down. So it's not just mountains. Okay, it's the interruption of the ocean currents. After we do this Cenozoic thing, I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to talk about for the last week that we're going to have before it's 6 weeks a week, like the exam week. I'm pretty sure I can do how this works in a week, in a day. I don't know. I haven't taken a look at that yet. I've said before, there's no book for this class for me to base anything off of. I'm just sort of pulling things together as I can. So this
change in the ocean currents, plus the fact the mountains and ice is coming and glaciation and sea levels are falling and rocks are eroding and pulling carbon dioxide out of the air. This is what triggered the beginning of the Ice Age, which happened at the end, started at the end of the Pliocene, and went through the first part of the Quaternary period. We've been coming out of that in the Holocene, which is our epoch. No,
That's hollow, isn't
that's this is anyways. Stop it. So glaciations happen. More water opens up the land bridge and allows modern humans to walk, like I said, right between those two. The Laramide, which is the big one that was over Canada, and then
Right, would that be like Alaska?
I can't remember the skinny one that went down the Rocky Mountains. I can't remember what that one's called off the top of my head. The Laramide is the big one. But there literally was a path that people could, from Siberia, they crossed the Bering Strait, which is now Thuringia, it was the land bridge, and then down through Alaska, and then along the right side of the Rockies, there literally was like a strip that was not in ice, and it let them go down into North America. We did that last 6 weeks. I think that was last 6 weeks. There's multiple land bridges. You also had one between Africa and Europe and Asia to allow people, because like I said, humans really started in Africa and then they went from there. And we know that because we all share the same mitochondrial DNA, which is only passed down by the mother. We all have the same thing. They have those things that you can do, like the DNA testing kits where you can send it off and they'll tell you like where your lineages came from. Instead of having to look through a whole bunch of records. Let me check on mine here. Okay, I know Colton, I saw Colton. Let me see. Let's see here. You guys are finishing. Did I get Braylon? Yes, got Braylon, got Colton. Oh, there's Mauricio. Let me fix that. Y'all, I had opened up that test. I know everybody in here took it, but I had opened up that test through last night. If you didn't do well, I'm hoping I can get a retest done by the time I leave today. I wanted to start it this morning and I got slammed with a bunch of 504 documentation I had to do. So I'll send out an announcement if you want to do the retest when it's ready. And if you want to do that, either reply to it or you can send me an email to my Gmail if you want to retest. It's not there yet, so don't look for it. I have to change the test so it's not the same test. Because I've had people asking about that. That's something else I wanted to do over the spring break. All right, so something else is new. We now have kelp forests in the ocean. Kelp is like seaweed, very, very long strands of seaweed. This is what allowed the sea otter to develop. This is like a new type of, kelp is not grass. Kelp is actually, if I am not mistaken, a very specialized single cell plant. It's weird, it's different. Some people eat it. I don't.
That's what I'm seaweeds.
I've tried it just because, yeah, sure, I'll try new food, but no, I couldn't do it.
Tastes like protein.
It's disgusting and it's slimy. It's like, it's got this weird, I don't know, no. All right, so on the first map I showed you, there was that big, like, sort of lakey looking thing over by where Egypt and Iraq and everything is. That Dead Sea got pinched off. Okay, the Arabian Peninsula, everything got slammed together, but now the leftovers are the Black Sea, the Red Sea, Caspian Sea. There's other seas that are there too. This isn't all of them. Not the Caribbean Sea. That's on our side. It has nothing to do with over there. So not every single sea was from the Tethys remnants. But of our modern plants that have seeds, 95% of them have been established at this point. And they have not changed much. Not naturally. We changed them. We have done what is called selective breeding so that the plants will have a larger fruit. Or maybe like with wheat,
when you go to harvest it, the grains won't fall off the stalk. That is what we have done to the plants. In fact, human beings pretty much are not evolving as a species anymore, like making a new species, or at least if we are, it's extremely slow, but we are genetically. We're going through leaps and bounds of genetic mutations. In fact, we can change our own genes. We do it. There are people that do that. Like if a woman's pregnant, especially older, they'll pull some amniotic fluid, they'll test it, and there are some genetic abnormalities, I can say that easily, that can be fixed while the baby is still in the womb. We do it. You can choose your child's eye color now if you really want to. You can. That's expensive, okay, but you can do it. No, it's not that. It's done for a reason. I don't think they can fix certain things like Down syndrome or anything like that, but some of the more minor genetic abnormalities they can. All right, so elephants and rhinos came across the land bridge from Eurasia. Obviously, we don't have them here anymore, but that's how they got here. Horses went the other way. Horses, because horses started here. Remember yesterday, the 4-toed was the Eohippus, the 3-toed was the Mesohippus, the 2-toed, huh?
So I thought people were just killing them.
Horses?
Yeah.
We don't have horses nowadays.
Well, yeah, I know.
It's like extinct.
Not extinct, but like, people from Europe are bringing them.
Yeah, okay, so horses started here, but they migrated, like how humans came this way, horses went the other way. And we didn't have horses here until the Spaniards brought them here.
Yeah, see?
So, but they originated here. I don't mean like right here in Azle, but in North America. Songbirds developed. That's the scientific. Passerine is the scientific name for a songbird. So things like cardinals and robins. Snakes just not explode, but they blew up as a radiation. All different kinds of species of snakes. And rodents don't go away. Rats are going to be around for forever, or something akin to a rat. In Africa, apes, which are hominoids, OIDS, and human ancestors, hominids, are in the process of evolution. And I might talk about megalodon a little bit more tomorrow because that's a quaternary thing. The largest of all of the shark species. The numbers are between 40 to 50 feet in length. I showed you the picture of the lady standing inside the jaw. You put two people on top of each other and like inside the jaws. I had people asking for me to talk about this when we did dinosaurs, and megalodon doesn't belong there because it was a quaternary. Well, it's from the Neogene into the quaternary. It went extinct during the ice ages, actually, because the ice ages started at about 2.8-ish million years ago, give or take. And no, humans did not evolve from monkeys. We share common ancestors. I have to go back and pull all of their names up for Monday. So I haven't gotten there. I just know of a few. I know of the I guess most popular ones. I know they have found something older than Lucy, but I can't remember what it's called.
Wait, you found older what?
An older hominid than Lucy.
I've seen videos of like, there's people that sort of like cavemen over in like Europe somewhere. Like,
Y'all won't have candies.
I don't know how to explain it.
Okay. I'm gonna look forward to you ready. Hey, so horses are now modern. We talked about horses a lot yesterday. They now only have one toe. We call that a hoof. Hey, they're like walking on their tippy toes, essentially, because they have one toe. You ever get horses, you need to maintain their feet. You don't want to let them overgrow. You can completely lame your horse, like permanently. In North America, our rhinos disappeared. Our elephants, obviously we don't, we do in zoos, but natural elephants. But they did stay in Africa and also Asia. There's
there's all different kinds of elephants. There's African, Asian, and I believe Indian. I think there's 3 species of elephants still. In fact, the only continent that has natural megafauna, which we'll talk about on Friday, is Africa. The biggest thing that we have here are bison and moose. We don't have, well, yeah, elk are pretty big too, but they're not as big as their Ice Age ancestors, like the stag moose. Stag moose were much larger, and the giant deer were much larger. Okay, so the one on the south, sloths, armadillos, possums, they moved north. Camels, llamas, some horses moved south. They didn't end up surviving there. Dogs, cats, true cats, or their ancestors, bears, they moved south. They didn't all move south. We don't have any camels anymore. We don't have any llamas here naturally anymore either. South America does though. They came from here. Is there one more on here? Yes. Now, so in Africa, the pre-human hominid, this is what Lucy is, an Australopithecus, that's when they started forming. Now, we're still in the Miocene. I haven't switched over to the Pliocene. I believe that, yeah, that starts on the next slide. All right. Pliocene. This is the second of the 2 epochs. From 5.3 to 2.6 million years ago. The Ice Age really started at about 2.8 million years ago. And so it started in the Pliocene, but it was really the bulk of the Pleistocene, which is the beginning of the Quaternary, which we're doing tomorrow. Continents pretty much are where they are today. The only thing that's changing once again is where the coastline is because of glaciation and melting. We have huge savannas. And I mean, we don't call them savannas here, we call them like prairies. But this also caused deserts in both Asia and in Africa. This was the beginning of the Sahara Desert. The drying out of where that Tethys Sea used to be. Hackberry pollen is horrible right now. I think I sneezed like 15 times this morning. All right, we got a couple more left. Okay, so cooling brought grasslands, it brought deserts, but it also brought monsoons. It just depends on where your location is as to what different kind of climatic change is occurring at this point in history. So in India, this was the beginning of their seasonal monsoons, which they still have in that area. And they get them all the time. It's like we're right now, we're in hurricane, or not hurricane, we're in tornado.
Tornado season.
Tornado season, there you go.
Yeah.
Deserts, I'm not going to list every single desert, but the most well-known is the Sahara Desert. This is where it got its beginning. It was this drying out, and it was the fact that that sea got pinched off.
No.
The only thing that's really left for our portion of the world to form our country is the Great Lakes. And the Great Lakes were not created until the glaciers. Now, there were 4 glaciations in the Ice Age. It's been a while since we've talked about the Ice Age. 4 advances and retreats. The last one, the Wisconsin Maximum, which is what it was called. When that one retreated, it left behind big chunks of ice, which caused depressions. They melted, filled in the lakes. Okay, so the last of the major landforms in North America, or in the United States, is going to be this particular occurrence that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. So at the end of the Pliocene, we are in an ice age. And like I said, there were 4 parts. We've already done this in depth. First one was the longest, and as they go on, they got shorter and shorter and shorter. But the strongest advance was that last one that went down past like New York City and Chicago. as far as like the 2 mile high wall of ice, sort of like Game of Thrones, the wall in the north where they, what were the people in black called? Crows, I think. Oh, it's been so long since I've read those books, which were so much better than the things that they put out. Well, season 1 was pretty close to the book. All right, so this joining of the Isthmus of Panama was your big trigger for the beginning of the Ice Age. This happened at the end of the Pliocene. You had separate populations of marine life that could no longer like intermingle. And so that drove marine evolution on both sides. You had like Atlantic Ocean species and Pacific Ocean species, so they had separate evolutionary paths. It is a huge driver for speciation with evolution. Then we have more freezing. Water gets locked in ice. Sea levels drop even further. Reinforces land bridges. Changes currents. All of this stuff is going on, which is driving these 4 glaciations that are about to occur in the Quaternary. We got one more little one. But what's happening with our, specifically with the grazers, I just can't go that far into specific evolution of species. I don't have enough time. I would have liked to have done the horse and the whale in depth, but we just don't have the time for it. All right, the last slide I got. At this time, the Mediterranean Sea dried up. And eventually it filled back up again, like a few million years later. Okay, but this created a nice big grassy area for grazers. Now, stop. Any forests at this time were pretty much replaced by grasslands, and this sort of cemented the forward motion of these large herbivores that were happening in the next period, the Quaternary, the Ice Age. Their teeth changed. Boys, stop it. Their teeth changed to be able to grind the grasses and the grains. Some of them lost upper teeth. There are some like cows don't have upper teeth. I don't think deer do either. I think they have the plate on the top and they just have the bottom teeth. And their legs got longer for 2 reasons. To be able to move to graze, to cover longer distances in a shorter period of time, and to also look out for predators. Because these saber-toothed cats and dire wolves and the short-faced bears, and like these big, nasty carnivores, they've replaced the terror birds at this point. That's the end of this one. I'm gonna freeze it, and I'm gonna double check who is missing stuff. No, not yet. Because the stuff from 2 days ago is closing at midnight. Hold on. Hold on. I gotta pause my thing. So